the loop of writing something, posting about it, putting it out, people streaming it, without the live music part, without people coming to a show and you seeing them face to face and you shaking their hand afterwards and saying thank you for listening and for being here, um, none of this would mean anything to me.
Awesome, man. Hey, Sam, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm Adam, and this is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about all your new stuff coming out.
Let's do it.
Awesome, awesome. So I did read from Jersey area. Is that what I saw?
Yeah, from Red Bank.
Red Bank. What was it like growing up there?
It was great. I had a great childhood. We did all the normal things, jumping in leaf piles and cutting our knees up and whatever. It was a Red Bank's 1 square mile large town, and it's right
Oh,
by the
wow.
beach, right by the beach in New Jersey. So I grew up surfing and going to the beach and doing all that.
That's awesome. I grew up in San Diego, totally
Oh,
opposite
sick.
side of the country. So
Yeah,
I would imagine the beach there is a bit different than Southern California. You're in LA now? Is that what I
I
saw?
am. I'm in
Okay.
South LA. It's a lot different, but I think having grown up near the beach, being here, being in LA, on the west side, definitely feels more like home than anywhere else.
Yeah, that's awesome. And did I see that your dad is a songwriter or was a
He
songwriter?
is, yeah. He doesn't songwrite professionally currently, but he gets upset when I say he was a songwriter because he is still a
He said,
songwriter.
I'm still a songwriter.
Still does write really great songs. But yeah, I grew up with him playing songs and going to his shows and all that.
Oh, wow. So he was still doing it when you were around then.
Yeah, he likes to tell the story like my bringing my existence into the world was the end of his I want to be a rock star journey.
Okay.
Uh and which he says is, yeah, I'm the best thing ever. So it's not in a bad way,
Right.
but yeah. So but all throughout my childhood, I went to his gigs, and he had musician friends that were always over at my house playing music and sharing their songs. So it was definitely around.
That's really cool. I saw it was like a meme and it said, Dad, when I grow up, I want to be a musician. And then the response was, well, you can't be both. I thought that was funny. So well, that's awesome. So you were around music, obviously, and seeing your dad play, and it was something that you were able to be around from an early age. Were you put like on an instrument early on? Like, did your dad put you on the piano or did you learn guitars super young?
No, there was no hands-on instruction from my dad. There was no, hey, why don't you try this? It was always kind of his thing until I have a younger brother who's 3 years younger than me. And we both, not until we got to college, decided to pick up a guitar or play a piano or sing a note. Before then, we were just happily uh, happy just being consumers of music and being our dad's biggest fans.
That's interesting. So this wasn't anything that you were like pursuing from a very early age. Just kind of in college, you
No,
started to play.
no, I wish. I grew up just going to the beach and surfing, and I played soccer all my life. That was kind of my thing for a while. I played soccer for my first 2 years of college. And my brother the same. And yeah, I just didn't we were surrounded by, my dad probably has 25 guitars, and we always had a drum set that we'd mess with, and there was always a baby grand piano in my parents'
Wow.
house, and we just never thought to touch any.
It's probably one of those things like, oh, that's, my dad does that. Like, it's not gonna be
Totally,
cool. It's not as cool,
totally.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it was just his thing, and we had our thing, and everyone was was happy doing their thing.
That's cool. So you went to college for soccer. Wow. Did that become, I mean, did the music writing kind of overtake that?
Yeah, totally. It completely replaced it and changed the course of my life. But
Sure.
yeah, I went to college and played soccer for 2 years in Fairfield, Connecticut, and that was my thing. I was studying nursing. I was a nursing major. So it's just a completely different life trajectory.
Yeah, were you trying to was the goal to, like, play for the MLS or something like that?
No, not
Oh,
really. I just really wanted to play, college soccer. That was really the bookend of my, soccer dreams.
okay.
And I did, and I was like, "Great, this is cool." And very, very quickly, songwriting and music replaced that.
What drew you to then start songwriting or even picking up an instrument?
I was away from home for the first time. I had a lot of time by myself. I was, in college, you're kind of reinventing yourself and figuring out who you want to be and trying on a few different hats.
Mhm.
And I just kind of found myself really busy with school and with soccer, and I was just going to the music rooms at night after I had class or whatever, and staying there until 1 or 2 in the morning, just learning to play piano and learning to sing, and it was really cathartic for me. And I'm very lucky to have developed such a pure need-based relationship to music in that time of my life. And then everything kind of started from that.
Wow, and were you so you were writing songs at that point, and did you show them to anybody? But how did your music validation kinda start?
Yeah, it's a strange thing. I didn't feel the need to show them to anybody at first. I had a few friends at Sacred Heart, where I went, that I kind of just sang for, like, "Hey,
Uh-huh.
here's a song, I guess." And they're like, "Okay, you can sing and play instruments." Sure. And they were very encouraging. And I think it's just kind of a snowball thing. You show it to one person, they're like, "Hey, that's not terrible." And it eventually got to the point where I sent my dad just a clip of me singing. And this is a cold text message for me with no context of I can sing, or I know how to sing, or I know how to write songs or play an instrument.
Or I've even been doing this at all. So it's
Yeah,
like he's
yeah,
just
I
like,
kind of
"What
just
the hell?"
dumped all of it on him at once. And I remember he called me and he was like, this is I'm 20 years old at this point, I guess, and he said, "So for 20 years you just been able to do this? Like you don't think your songwriter musician father would have liked to know that you can sing or play instruments or any of this?" So it was a really funny kind of reveal to him, but it's been cool ever since then to share that relationship with him in a new way.
Yeah, I bet. Wow. Yeah, it's interesting that you could send that and you weren't really even searching for that, right? I mean, for 20 years. It was just like, "Hey,
Oh,
here, and you've been able to do this?" Well, I didn't really know I could do it until
yeah,
X amount of time ago.
I had no idea. I kinda just stumbled into it.
Mhm. And how did you kind of, like, from that point on, were you how did you kind of start your paving your way in that industry?
Um, it was kind of just completely obsessive and immersive in, wow, here's an entire new world of creation that I know nothing about, and there's so many things to learn, and I was never a fan of, um, just traditional educational format. I never liked going to class. Uh, I did well in school because I enjoyed learning, and when I had a really great teacher who was passionate about teaching, I always did well.
Mhm.
Um, so being able to teach myself and having a entire new landscape of untouched knowledge real estate, I was like, okay, I'm going to learn how to produce or songwrite or play guitar or produce or record myself singing. So I just kind of chipped away at each of those things, and I'd spend a lot of time in my room at college just doing that, learning how to play instruments, how to record myself, how to sing. um, so it was really, really fun, and it feels like I'm still doing all of those things now to
Mhm.
some degree, which is what I love about it.
Did you end up finishing school with the nursing degree, or did that
I
kinda go out the window at
I
some point?
didn't. The nursing degree and the soccer playing kind of all stopped at the same time,
Uh-huh.
like within a month maybe. I transferred schools. I went to the University of South Carolina for 2 years to go somewhere where I didn't know anybody. Sacred Heart's a pretty small school, and it started to feel like high school in that there's only, there was only maybe 5,000 or 6,000 kids when I went there. It's bigger now, but
Wow.
uh, you kind of just knew everyone and everyone knew you. And I didn't feel challenged at all socially, really. Um, so I went to South Carolina because it was an enormous school and I knew nobody there. And I think by the time I went there, I was pretty sure I was going to do the music thing, and I had absolutely no idea how that was going to happen or how that was going to work or what that looks like, but I just knew that that's what I was going to do.
Okay. So going then to that school probably allowed you to be, a fresh slate. Like you aren't a soccer guy. You're like, okay, I'm here. I'm songwriting now, and you almost be able to take on that new direction.
Totally. Yeah, it was a complete reinvention or innovation of me and the context in which people knew me.
Uh huh.
I at Sacred Heart, I had my nursing friends that I did clinicals with and wore scrubs with, and I had my soccer team friends who are still some of my best friends now, and guys that I consider family.
Sure.
But that's the context in that they knew me.
Hmm.
And in South Carolina, everybody knew me as the guy who plays guitar, which was
Right.
strange, but was the first introduction to uh, that type of business card.
Yeah. And were you putting up songs at that point? Like, did you start releasing your own songs, or were you playing out around South Carolina at all? Like,
I played,
once you decided that I'm
yeah,
going to
I
do
played a
this.
few times. I played like a bunch of like coffee houses and open mics and stuff like that. And I, put a few covers or maybe one or two original songs on SoundCloud, but I wasn't sure how to put out a real song. And I wasn't really even sure I was writing real songs yet, because I didn't know what I wanted to sound like. And I was kind of all over the place in the creation aspect of it.
What do you remember the moment that kind of changed for you?
I I I think I mean I put out a song called Something Simple, which is still on my Spotify. And it was just a one take song that I wrote that felt like the first real song. And I just put that on Spotify, and then it was just kind of doing the social media thing, just posting and seeing what people liked and what people resonated with in terms of what exactly I was doing or could do. Um, and then it wasn't really until I had a full year after college. I spent pretty much a year in New York City, commuting to New York City, living at home with my parents, writing with people in New York City, writing for people in New York City, and doing my first ever real co-writes and doing my first ever sessions. I did my first trip to LA. It wasn't until then where I wrote maybe 20 or 30 songs that I realized, okay, maybe there's one in here that's good enough to put out with a full release and a full rollout plan. And I met my manager and we became best friends, and it all started to feel a little bit more real.
Hmm. So you took because yeah, from just going off your Spotify, you had a couple years in between Something Simple before you put out the next song. Was that kind of that growing period of trying to figure out what you were gonna do at that point?
Yeah, pretty much. I was really patient, which looking back is impressive to me because I'm not patient in the slightest in most other areas of my life, and certainly not now in terms of putting out music and keeping up a frequency and putting out music. But I was really patient and intentional about making sure I believed what I was putting out, which I'm really proud of, and I'm happy I did that, and I'm happy I took the time to do that because it's really hard and it takes a lot of time and it takes sounding not like yourself, and it takes a few years of trying to sound like other people, and in failing to do so, finding what you sound like and what you actually like and gravitate towards and all of that.
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things, right? To be yourself, so to speak, without trying to emulate other people.
Yeah, it's a lot more work actually, weirdly.
Yeah, I come from radio, and I remember when I first started being on the air on the radio stations, you try to mimic other people that you had heard your whole life, right? And then you
Sure.
get to a point where it's like, no, just everyone's like, just be you, and you're like, how the hell do I be me? Like, I don't understand. And then you just, it clicks one day.
Is your relationship to what other people associate with your mannerisms and your things that you do that people like, do you think that those things are the same in your mind as what the viewer likes about you in terms of
I
your
don't, to be honest,
presentation?
probably not. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
very self-critical, and there's things that I'd be like, oh, I hate that. And then someone's like, what? Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You know what I
right.
mean? It's like that thing. And I'm sure you get that as a musician too. You're like, oh, I can't stand this part, or I really don't like what I did here. And everyone else is like, what are you talking? Like, this is amazing. This is great.
Yeah. My dad has always said that to me, even before I was working in music. He's like, a lot of it is just a lot about what people are gonna connect with that comes from you is really not up to you.
Right. I like that. That's a great,
Mhm.
that's a
Which
great
is
quote.
interesting because that's why I asked, because I feel like there's a lot of times when you're making art that you make something and you're like, Yeah, maybe it's good," and you put it out and you're like, "Yeah, I didn't really like that," and people are like, This is the best thing I've ever heard," and you're like,
Right.
Really? That's what did it for you?"
Do you have that feeling when it comes to even maybe some of the songs you're like released? Not that you don't like them, or maybe you're like, this is a song I really like, but maybe it's not going to latch on to people in a way it will, or a song takes off and you're like, wow, like I would have never, in that wouldn't have been the song I chose off this release that would have took off.
Yeah, I definitely do. I think it's hard. I think I need distance from all of the songs and all of the releases to really have any type of perspective on what my genuine relationship is to them and
Hmm.
what other people's relationship is to them. When you're in the writing, releasing, recording, hyping the song up, putting it out mode is all very fight or flight, adrenaline, uh, you know, teeth clenched excitement, and you have to kind of get away from that and away from like the blast radius of a release to be like, okay, how do I relate to this song now, because I don't have to hear it 100 times a day because I'm producing it, or it's mixed 3 times and then mastered and all these things. You need some like real distance uh from the thing to kind of decide how you feel about it all over again.
Hmm.
Um, and some songs age well, in my opinion, and in the, somewhat objectively the view of the listeners, and some don't. And some I'm kind of just like, I don't know, I probably would have done that different, or I would have made the guitars dirtier, or whatever it is. But for the most part, I'm pretty stoked on the music I've put out so far still, which is cool.
Yeah, no, your songs are amazing. I was just curious if there was
Thank
something
you.
that you were like, oh, like I like this song, but I don't know if it's gonna work. And then it's like everyone connects. I mean, they do to all your songs just based off your streams, but yeah, it's one of those things where maybe you didn't know, like, oh, the likelihood of me thinking that song was gonna be the one that people love to the extent was crazy to think to me or whatever.
Yeah, I think whenever I'm putting out a music now, or in the past, each song I just try and give my all. I'm always like, this could be the best song from me right now. And I
Hmm.
think in order to put it out, I believe that in some sense, for all of the songs. And obviously releases go better than others, and people connect at different levels. So it's always interesting to see how that varies every time.
Hmm. Like with your song Last Minute, for example, like that one went wild, like on TikTok, didn't it? Like just kind of
Yeah.
went exploded for you. Tell me about that moment. Like, was it something that you just kind of teased and then people just started to latch onto it? Was it a full song? Like, how did that really happen? Or, what kind of started the fire?
Yeah, I just teased it, and it was just one of those things. It just people just immediately latched onto it, and were just kind of it introduced me to a lot of new people, which was really cool very quickly.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, it wasn't I didn't put a lot of effort into teasing it. I was just kind of like laying it out there. And it seems like that's usually when things go the best.
Right. It's like that authenticity of just, here's the song, like not too much thought into it, but obviously there's thought into the song, but maybe not into the presentation and the video and having all these produce pieces to it. It's just like, okay, here it is. And then people are just like, whoa, that's uh, I can relate directly to this. And then
Totally.
millions of people later have seen and used that song, and that must have been just such a wild feeling.
Yeah, it's really strange. It's really strange. And I mean, in full transparency, that was probably one of the songs where I was like, yeah, I love this song. I think this song sounds great. I didn't have any of those expectations for it, for whatever reason. Uh, but yeah, it's really cool to see people connecting with that and asking me to play it at shows and all of that.
Yeah, I bet. Wow. Yeah, I always think of those viral moments as like if it was me that was happening to, I would think I would always relate it to like maybe like a slot machine or something where you're just like you see the views, you're like, whoa, okay, that has a lot, and then you like refresh and it's just like brrr, like keep
Yeah.
building. I mean, that must be there's got to be some sort of like dopamine hit there, every time you're like, oh my gosh, like even more and more. Like, were you having that experience?
Yeah, that was probably the first time I've ever had anything like that happen. And it's really strange. And then I think my analytical brain is naturally like, okay, what do I do now?
Right.
What's next? How do I move forward? Which is not the most healthy mindset. And I think in perpetuity gets really exhausting. But yeah, it was definitely the first time I've ever had like an explosion of attention at one time.
I would imagine though that it's got to be pretty common that if you were to do, like if I were to have something like done, like I would be like, okay, how do I follow this, right? Like
Yeah.
like this is happening, like hopefully the next thing will do that or more or whatever. Like uh, did you have that, maybe not fear, but like was that something that you were thinking about?
Yeah, I I tend to take a very blue collar approach in thinking about things, at least in how I visualize them and uh view the music industry. And it seems like to me the most helpful thing has been creating momentum and then keeping it whenever
Mhm.
you can, creatively, visually, socially, however. So when something like that happens, I'm like, okay, how do I just kind of pour fire on this and just keep the ball moving downfield, um, which is increasingly hard, I think.
Oh yeah, I bet. Well, so you have Powerlines, it's an EP, the new EP.
Yep.
I want to hear, tell me about this EP.
So this EP is 8 songs, um, eight good songs, I think,
Mhm.
and it's just it's my best attempt at uh documenting the last 2 or 3 years of my life, um, from every corner of the room. And yeah, there's some fun songs, there's some sad songs, they're up, they're down, they're all over the place. They're all going to sound good live by design. Uh, at least that's my hope. But I feel good playing them all to you on an acoustic guitar as I do playing them with a band. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited for people to hear it. I think I've tried my best to create a little world for it to live in, a self-contained, self-sufficient world for it to live in. It's definitely different than my last EP. I think it probably slams the needle in the other direction in a lot of the production textures and the writing. I think it's definitely my best foot forward from me at the moment.
Mhm. And did you produce it yourself? Is that
I
what I read?
did. My buddy Adam Yarone produced 6 of the 8 songs on
Okay.
it. And then I co-produced some, and Tommy English and Jeremy Hatcher produced one, and they're amazing. And yeah, but Adam Yarone is pretty much my most frequent collaborator, my closest friend in music, and we did most of it together.
That's really cool. And are these songs that you said it's kind of like a snapshot of the last 3 years? Were they songs that you started writing fairly recently, or are they, because I know you put in another record out in 2021, uh, but like between those two periods of time, or are any of these songs like older that you have, or they're all fairly new?
They're all fairly new. I think the oldest is probably a year and a half.
Okay.
So they're not very old. And some of them, I think Stretch, one of the songs in there is 3 or 4 months old. It's
Oh,
pretty
wow.
pretty
So
new.
you were writing and kind of put in recording them fairly quickly then for this
Yeah,
release.
yeah, totally. Most of them didn't sit on a shelf for very long.
That's did you enjoy that? I mean, with the other one before that, was that kind of the case? I mean, I'm just thinking because you said you put the song out in 2018, and then it wasn't for a couple of years that you were kind of finding your sound, and then you released is it Songs of Sam?
Yeah,
And
most
with
percent.
that, was that something that were those songs more of a collection of everything that you had built for a couple of years, and then after the release, like this one's like, okay, now we're gonna move forward, and I've got all these songs and ideas I'm gonna put down and record right away.
Yeah, Songs for Sam was definitely more of a collection period, probably like 2 years. So not terribly different, but I think with this EP, I've been writing so frequently the last year, 6 months, whatever it is. And just because the time has passed, I trust myself more in what I think I want the sound and the sonic palette to be right now. So I think that's why I was able to inform for myself the decision of putting something like Stretch on there when I wrote it 3 or 4 months ago. I just trust myself, and I trust I think how the songs will age a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um, and I'd be happy to play any of these songs for the next 10 years, which is definitely like a prerequisite for me.
That's amazing. And you have a pretty big tour coming up as well. You're playing some big cities.
I have a big old headline tour coming up.
That's must be really exciting.
It's really exciting, and I feel really lucky, and it's absolutely terrifying to think you're throwing a big party in a city and you're just inviting people to come and they're supposed to come. Uh, so yeah, we'll see. It's been great so far, but yeah, I'm definitely really excited.
Yeah, because you've probably seen a lot of these, obviously you've got, the viral moments and you've got a lot of streams, and it's like to connect that to, wow, now I'm going to see all these people like in person in a room. That must be different. It's got to be a little bit different to translate. Okay, these are real people that are listening. Because when I think of 50 million, it's like that's such an obscene amount, of
Right.
people. And then you're like, no, but maybe it's a city you've never been to, and then there's people there that want to hear your songs.
Totally. I mean, that the live music thing is my favorite thing about being an artist. It's the thing I feel luckiest getting to do for a job. And really without that component of the loop of writing something, posting about it, putting it out, people streaming it, without the live music part, without people coming to a show and you seeing them face to face and you shaking their hand afterwards and saying thank you for listening and for being here, um, eh, none of this would mean anything to me. And it certainly would mean a lot less. I would always write music and I would always write songs because that's who I am and who I've become, and what I need to just live life. But in terms of the actual job of being an artist and clocking in and clocking out, it wouldn't be fulfilling in the slightest if it was just online or if it was just an internet interaction. Like the human experience part of it is definitely the most special to me.
Mhm. How is your dad must be so over the moon about your success and just seeing you as a songwriter, especially since 20 years. He's like, wait, you've been able to do this and not only do it, but succeed in a way that very few people are able to do.
He is my biggest fan and a big supporter. My mom as well. um they're the most supportive parents ever, and they're just really excited. My little brother, who is an insane guitar player, much better at guitar and instruments than me, can't sing, but whatever. He's going to be playing lead guitar for me on tour.
Oh, wow.
So that'll be fun. And my parents will just probably cry the whole time.
You should bring dad up. That would be
Yeah,
epic.
yeah, that'd be fun. I mean, it will happen eventually. My brother, and my dad, um, a few years ago played a benefit concert together. It was the first time we had all played together on a stage in front of people, and it was really amazing and great.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Were you doing your songs or covers or?
The benefit concert was for AIDS research for children, and it's a they actually just had their last year. I think it was the 20th or 21st year. But my dad and his musician friends in New Jersey hold a concert in a church for the community as a
Wow.
fundraiser, and every year they have a different uh theme and artist that they cover. So the year that we played together was Paul Simon.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
and we did a Paul Simon song, and it was amazing.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, that's so cool, and that's awesome that you're bringing your brother along for the ride as well, as far as like letting him, play. He's playing on your tour with you. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna give him a shot. Hopefully he doesn't mess it up, but it'll be great. Of
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Sam, for doing this. I appreciate your time today.
course, thank you so much for having me. It was a great chat.
I have one more question for you. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
My advice would be to ask as many questions as possible, and then to understand that no one really knows what they're talking about or doing. Uh, and that unfortunately and fortunately, the only way to work in the music industry, have a career, things I'm all still actively in real time figuring out and trying to attain and working towards. The only way to do any of that is to just start writing songs, start playing guitar, start singing, start meeting people, start doing sessions, and start finding people to create with visually, and someone to take your cover art. Because that's just how you do it. You just have to kind of jump in with 2 feet and figure it out as you go. There's no real online course or curriculum that can fast track anything you're trying to do, other than you just put in the time in.
Bringing it backward.